Okay, Road to Paris. I am with the most exciting person that I could ever talk to at this time of year, going into 2024. Gwen Jorgensen. She's kind of done it all already, but she's trying to add one more "I've done it" to her resume. She was world champion 2 years in a row. She had a 13 race consecutive winning streak, 2013 to 2014. Gold medal in Rio, running away on the run segment of it, just like I was just like jumping out of my skin when you pulled away, like, oh my God, she's gonna win it. She's gonna get a freaking gold medal. So Gwen, so great to see you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's good to be here.
I just got to ask you something before we kind of get into this journey. What were you thinking, around 2020 when Tokyo was getting postponed and you're reflecting back on how perfect Rio was?
I actually remember having conversations with Patrick being like, I am so happy I'm not doing triathlon. And I don't know, maybe triathlon fans will not like me for saying that, but I was just really over triathlon when I quit in 2016. And I wasn't loving what I was doing every day. And so that's a big reason why I quit. And I just remember sitting down with Pat and just I'm like, gosh, could you imagine if I would have done 4 more years just for the money and then I have to wait another year? I was like, I would have just been miserable. So yeah, I was running at the time and had a lot of injuries with my Achilles. And so I had wanted to do the marathon trials, but hadn't been able to do marathon training because I had some surgeries on my Achilles. And so I was prepping for the Olympic trials in the 5K, 10K. So I was actually kind of happy at that time for an extra year of trying to get my running up to where I wanted it to be.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I cannot imagine what it must have been like to have to actually postpone your Olympic journey a year and not even really knowing if it was going to take place, when it was going to take place, and thinking about like you, perfect Rio, and then now when did that little seed come back into your mind like, this could be really intriguing to come back and see if I can make it to Paris?
I think it's something that Patrick has always probably wanted me to do. And for me, it was just something that he'd bring it up every once in a while. And I just very quickly say, no, absolutely not. Move on, next topic. And I got pregnant with George. And oh gosh, so that was 2021, 2022. I don't remember the dates. He's one right now. But yeah, I was pregnant and I just couldn't really run that much, wasn't that comfortable running, and started to swim. I actually started to swim with Ian's group here in Boulder. And I was like, wow, I thought I really didn't like swimming and I'm really enjoying this. I want to come back tomorrow. I want to swim again. And so that's kind of how it started. I just had stopped the sport completely. And when I quit it, I would say the main thing I wasn't enjoying was swimming. And so when I started to swim again when I was pregnant and started to enjoy it, I was like, huh, okay, maybe this is something that I could try for. And it was also interesting again for me. I think, when I quit in 2016, 2017, I had felt like I had accomplished all my goals. And this time around, it felt like, yeah, I'm trying to go after the same thing, but it's completely different. Like I haven't swam or biked in 7 years. I have two children. Just everything was different about it. And so for me, I'm always really motivated by challenges. And so this was something that I knew I'd have to navigate, and it couldn't be the same that happened in 2016 because everything is just different now.
So you've got fun going in your corner and you've got this intrigue going. That was your motivation then.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And it just, I think for me, the most important thing as an athlete, it's grueling, that, Mark. And there's
Yeah.
days, plenty of days when you don't want to get out there. Right now, it's, negative degrees here in Boulder. There's snow on the ground, it's icy, and you're tired, you're in the grind, and, it's hard. Like we love what we do,
Mm.
but even when you love what you do, there are still days that you have no motivation. You don't want to get out the door. And so if you're trying to do that without that love and that inspiration, it's not possible. I
Mm.
don't think, at least.
So you think those years off gave you that extra something that maybe was missing at the end once you had accomplished that medal in Rio?
Yeah, and I don't really know what the years off gave me. I think as well, I have a really good appreciation of time. I'm 37 years old. I'm older. I know that I can't do this forever. And I'm really enjoying not only the racing, but the training too. And so, yeah, as the saying goes, you only live once, and I'm trying to just make the most of it.
Mm. Yeah, I think when you reach that point where you know there's a limited number of tomorrows in a certain journey, it's super motivating. It's like, okay, I can get on this, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. The swimming feels good again. I would love to have swimming feel good again, to be honest. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but anyway, going back to last year, you started the year obviously in a very different position than you did when you were getting ready for Rio. You came into last year 0 points, and maybe you can just give like a quick uh, recipe for people who don't quite understand what that means in your journey.
I learned so much this year that I never knew when I was back in the sport. When I first started out, I don't think there was as many strong women. And so
Mm.
like points weren't even talked about back in 2011. Like for me to get into a race, it was super easy. And yeah, so basically there's each WTCS race, which is the highest level of race. Each country can have 5 women from their country go to those races, and you get into those races by being ranked in the top 5. And so, yeah, I mean, I started the year with 0 points, which meant there was, I don't know, what do you think, like 50 people in front of me? I mean, there's
Mm.
just anyone who had done a race and gotten a point was ahead of me. And so I needed to race my way into enough points. And we have a lot of strong women, a lot of women who I think are capable at the Olympic level. And so, yeah, it was a huge challenge. I This past year had no idea when I was getting into races. I'd find out the week of, I'd be in Boulder, I'd fly out to Hamburg with, less than 4 days notice that I was racing. And yeah, so I just kind of had to really learn. And I think, as an athlete, you talked about earlier with COVID, not knowing what was going on. And I think as an athlete, we have to just be able to deal with anything that comes our way. Like in a race, you can't predict what's going to happen in a race. And I think so as an athlete, we just have to really get used to managing where we are in that moment. And yeah, we can't really plan too much. And this year was a lot of not being able to plan, which I am very type A and I like planning. So this is a long way to answer your points question. But yeah, so basically I raced a bunch of World Cups, which I knew I could get into. In order to get points, the maximum you can get at a World Cup is like 500 points for an Olympic distance race, and a World Triathlon Series race. The max you can get is like, oh boy, I should know this, 1750 or 1250. So yeah, I just had to race a bunch of World Cups. I won 4 of them, got silver at 2, and
Mhm.
that has put me into the position to be 5th. That doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed a race, because USA Triathlon can still sub me out of races. So, but I'm in a much better position
Mm.
starting off this year.
Do you think you could have handled that uncertainty 7 years ago? Or
No. I mean, I even like I went to a World Cup, my first World Cup win this last year, and I did it without Patrick. And I just said to Patrick, I said, in 2016, 2015, 2014, like there was no way I could have even gone to a race by myself without Patrick, without my coach. Like, I had no help there. And that's just me, like just being able to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I think I've grown a ton about. And this past year, one of my big things was just about being bold and trying to grow as a person. So I think I was able to do that in a lot of ways.
Well, definitely uncertainty helps you grow as a person. I think anybody who's ever lived their life will know that for sure. If just for those of you listening, if you think like getting to the Olympics is like this glorious journey, and the glory of making it, and you're in the opening ceremonies and all that stuff, well, you got to frigging get there. And Gwen gave you a quick rundown. She said she had to go to all these places. Let me just tell you all the countries that she raced in last year: New Zealand, Mexico, Germany, the UK, Spain, the Czech Republic, South Korea. I need a nap. Japan, Chile, and of course the United States. I mean, that's insane. I think you raced 16 races last year. How,
I've never raced that much in my life. And I mean, as you know, you've done some travel as well. Just that international travel, it wears on you.
Mm,
And not knowing and not being able to predict which races I was going to go to. Like a lot of times I'd go to a race in Europe, come back because I didn't know if I'd be able to race in 2 weeks, and then find out a week later I'm racing, go back to Europe.
mm,
So yeah, I mean, the fatigue, you only have so many long haul travels in you. And as well, I think my training suffered because of it. So yeah,
mm,
there was many things that I dealt with, but at the same time, I had a ton of fun this year. And I got to visit some places I've never been to before. And talked about earlier, just knowing that my days are probably limited. I was really able to enjoy the places I went to. As an athlete, I think a lot of times we go into a race and we don't really enjoy the culture. We don't really
mm,
see much of the town. And I really felt like I was able to absorb the places I was at, and to really immerse myself in the things that I like to do when I travel. And so I do think there were some positives that came from all that travel.
mm. So there was a little bit of silver lining no matter where you went.
Yeah, yeah.
Just talk to me a sec about your team and how you make all this happen. Going to 16 races, all those different countries. Clearly, there's a lot of support behind the curtain for you. How does that work?
Yeah, especially with two young kids. Stanley's 6 now and George is 1. And at the beginning of the year, the whole family was traveling with me. They all came to New Zealand. They all came to Italy. And so, yeah, they were traveling with me. And I realized very quickly that that was hard on them. Even if that's what I wanted, I don't think that was what was best for the family as a whole. So I had to come to terms with that. And we this year got an au pair for the first time. And so we have childcare in our house. And, as a Patrick and I both have unconventional jobs. And so we kind of need help at unconventional times. And
Mm.
so to have an au pair is really beautiful. So just, I don't know if people know much about the au pair program, but there's somebody who lives with us full time, and it's a woman. Our first au pair, she just left a few weeks ago. I'm so sad. And we're getting another
Wow.
one in a week, but it's the hardest part with them leaving. But yeah, they can work up to 45 hours a week. And so Patrick and myself, with our first with Stanley, we didn't get any help. We didn't do preschool or like childcare until he was 3. And so I think that was really hard. And it took me a long time to allow myself to not feel guilt about not doing it all, about raising them on my own, getting no help. And once I was able to, I told our first au pair, Lulu, like, she changed my life, and she has changed my life forever. She allowed me to see that it's okay for my children and for me and Pat to get some help with childcare. It's good for them. It's good for us. And especially if the people you have helping you love your children, I find it really beneficial. And that was changing for us.
Hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes the hardest thing is asking people for help when you need it, right?
Yeah. My mom actually says I'm very good at asking for help whenever I need it. She says I have no problem with that. But I do think I had a lot of mom guilt around just
Yeah.
asking for help in that area. So yeah, it is hard sometimes to ask for help. I think especially in the society, we're supposed to be seen as people who can do it all and don't ever stop working. And
Mm.
it's a culture that I think we can get wrapped up to, and sometimes it can make us feel guilty when we shouldn't.
Mm. How would you compare kind of your journey? And I don't even know if you can compare it. Where you're at right now, what you're going through, the things that you have to juggle and balance compared to like Beth Potter.
Um, it's just so different. Beth Potter has a dog though.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sure that takes some care. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's a completely different journey than, I don't know exactly what Beth is doing day to day, but I do know that I'm more reluctant to do month-long training camps because I know that it uproots my entire family. And so there's a lot of things that I've implemented that helped me. I'm a different, I call this journey that I'm on, I'm Gwen 2.0. I'm not the same Gwen I
Mm,
was
mm,
in 2016, 2015. And it's, I don't, I think there's things that are better and there's things that are harder,
mm,
and it's finding that balance. Yeah, it's me a lot of times not wanting, if there is 3 races back to back in Europe, I want to come home because I want to see my family, and it's juggling, okay, well, how many long haul flights do I have in me, and how can I make the most out of these races? While, I mean, hopefully this year I won't have to do 3 races back to back, but yeah, it's kind of like figuring out how to manage all that.
mm. You've got a good year coming up at this point today as we're recording this, 193 days until Paris. No matter how it turns out, what do you want people to know about this journey? Why does it, what is it that has importance for you? I mean, clearly one thing is that you've evolved as a person. Like you said, this is Gwen Jorgensen 2.0, and that's a piece that I think a lot of athletes who are at the top of their sport never get to. They got their first version and they don't evolve, and so their career either gets cut short or they lose that sense of purpose. Like, why am I doing all this? Why am I doing all this work? Why am I going to all these places? Clearly, you've gone to a different place. So when you look back and when you want people to look in and see what you're doing, what is it this is for you this time?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the purpose. Back in, 2015, 2016, it was all about, winning gold in Rio.
Mm,
And I didn't really dive into the why. And this time around, I spend a lot of time. I had an entire mission statement that I created last year. I've just sat down. It's not quite finalized for this year, but I've been working on my mission statement for this year. And it's all about my why and my purpose. And that's what keeps me motivated. And I think if I would have had that back in 2016, I possibly could have continued triathlon, because it was more than just the end piece of metal. Right now, last year, my purpose was all about, inspiring not only other mothers, but my family, and showing them that we can do hard things, and being bold, being courageous, and having integrity and character. And those were the things that I really held myself to day in and day out, and it's what motivated me, and it, I think, is what helped me through those early days when I was very, I would say, in a vulnerable state. Like, I
mm,
was racing, 3 months postpartum, I wasn't getting sleep, I was breastfeeding, and I put myself out there when, my last races, I was, always on the podium, and I go into a race knowing that the likelihood of a podium was very low. But I knew that I needed to, in order to get the points, to get back into the game and get the experience. And so, those were, yeah, humbling moments that I think would have probably been too hard for me if I wasn't focused on my why. And I think if I could encourage other people to focus and hone in on their why, I think it can really make us happier in our journey, because we can always follow the why. We can't always predict the results, but we can always stay true to what matters to us.
mm. What a great lesson that it's not about whether you win the medal or not necessarily. That's not going to make you, that's not going to get you through those tough moments. It's the internal thing, like, this has meaning to me because I want my family to see integrity, to see that we can do hard things and that life is not necessarily always, it's not a script. It's a
And
let's
it
just
always
throw
changing.
I'm going to throw some things in the air today and let's see how many we can catch.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and obviously I still want that medal, and
Yeah.
that I still have those sorts of goals. And I think they are even more meaningful this time around because of those whys and those reasons.
If you can make it to Paris, which clearly on that trajectory that you were on toward the end of the season last year is looking very, very likely, a lot more than in the beginning there. And before I even get there, I just want to acknowledge, like, you know, those first races, I think a lot of people were looking like, oh, geez, she's not where she was. And, you know, to hear it from your mouth, like, this is 3 months postpartum. What do you expect? You know, I'm still nursing. It's, you know, those are the parts of the journey that for me are like just so amazing because they're the human parts. They're the
Yeah.
things we can all relate to. You know, when we're up against something that has meaning and we're going for it, but you know, not all the pieces are falling in place the way we would like.
Yeah. And, I think like, obviously, there were races that I went to and I felt, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? And I'd have to come back to my why and, remind myself it's been 7 years since I've raced. It's something that I think, at least for me personally, I get better at racing the more I race. It's different than training, and maybe you're training fit, but you're not racing ready.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I think, as well, yeah, a lot of people uh were probably saying things that you were saying, like, what is she doing? She's not going to make it. And I think that's when it's really important to have those whys, to have that circle of people around, my coach, Jamie, my husband, Patrick, who see what I'm doing, know where I'm at in my journey. Like, we full on knew. I remember USA Triathlon actually asked me, my first World Cup I did was in New Plymouth, and I got 14th, I think. But I remember that same weekend or a weekend before or after with Abu Dhabi, and USA Triathlon's like, oh, Gwen, everyone's not racing. So we actually have an open slot. Like, this is probably your only opportunity to get into like a WTCS race. Do you want to do it? And I just said, absolutely not. Like, I am not ready. So like, I knew at that point that I wasn't ready. And I think, that's as well, like a big portion of my journey, being bold and just putting myself out there and knowing where I'm at and judging myself on where I'm at that day, not necessarily, where I was 7 years ago. I was at the beginning of the season last year. I knew I probably wasn't ready. I hoped I was ready, but yeah, the training I was doing and where I was at just was not there yet.
And you stuck to your plan. That's amazing. That's great. Looking toward Paris, what are your thoughts on the course? It looks like it would be a really good one for you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get into the test event. And so I haven't actually ridden the course. And to be honest, Mark, I haven't done my homework on the course yet. I'm someone who does my homework on all the courses. So like before all these World Cups, I was watching a lot of the races I'd never been to. I go online and I watch all the previous years, look at the course. Talk to people who have raced it. And I haven't done that with Paris yet. I'm fully focused on qualifying. So there's a qualifying event in May in Yokohama.
Mhm.
Top three there. For if you're the top American in the top three, you automatically qualify. So I'm, right now watching Abu Dhabi, and I know Yokohama very well, but I'll do some course recon with that as well when that one comes up.
Wow, great. Well, Gwen Jorgensen on her journey to try to make it to Paris, amazingly inspiring, a human story. And I hope all of you who are listening to this have really enjoyed it. I have, and I've learned a lot. And it's just so many reminders of how to approach things and how to, you know, have fun, but be realistic and, you know, make the whole ball of wax work. That's such a great thing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I do think we get caught up a lot of times in the outcomes, and I think it's really good and important to have outcome goals.
Mm.
But I am so much happier having a reason and purpose behind those goals, and I want everyone to feel that joy as well. So hopefully they can learn something from this.
All right. Road to Paris with Gwen Jorgensen. Stay tuned. 2024 is just kicking off. It's going to be an amazing year. We'll see you soon.